G'day peeps, Ben Futrell here from on3legs.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to get silky smooth waterfalls and what settings to use on your camera. A couple of days ago I posted this picture here on my Facebook page, so it's at the 22nd of August, and I had a question from, let's have a look here, from Samadhi Rebecca Kildhair, and Samadhi asked me what, she said she would love to know what my settings were, and I promised I would make a quick video of my settings so Samadhi could find out, but not just Samadhi, but everybody, because I get asked these questions all the time. So I'm just going to quickly flick over into my Lightroom catalogue, and you'll see that's the exact same photo there. And not only am I going to do this, I'm going to show you a few different ones as well. I've got a few from that same location and other locations in Tasmania. If you're wondering where these falls are, by the way, it's Liffey Falls in Tasmania, these particular falls. And before I do share my settings with you, in fact, no, I'll share my settings with you, and then I'm going to give you a couple of traps that you've got to watch out for when you're shooting waterfalls. That's really important for you to keep an eye on. So in this particular instance, just so you know what I was shooting with, I used my Nikon D800, which is a great camera. I was using the 14-24mm lens, which is like the mecca of landscape lenses as far as Nikon world goes. And well, it's so good, in fact, I think Canon people buy adapters to use them on their Canons. That's how good a landscape lens it is. And this is a testament to how great this lens is, because to get this effect, you have to slow down the shutter speed. And you'll see, if you look over here on the right-hand side under the histogram in Lightroom, this is shot at 0.8 of a second. Now, that doesn't sound like a long time, but that's long enough when the water's moving as fast as it was here. 0.8 of a second means I get the blurry water, but everything else looks fine. And to do that, I've set my lens at f22, or my aperture at f22. Now that means I'm closing the hole in the lens, letting less light in, which forces the shutter to stay open longer, because I shot this in aperture priority. Now, you could do it in shutter priority if you wanted, but I find the best thing to do when shooting something like this is switch to aperture priority, push my aperture all the way up to the highest number I can, and see what it does. And the lowest ISO, by the way, this is shot at ISO 100, and see what it does. See what length it gives me. If I can't get the desired effect using those settings, then I'll get a filter out. I'm going to show you a couple other photos in a second where I've had to get a filter out to get my shutter speed to slow down enough to get the water a full effect. Now, the couple of traps, now that I've sort of explained to you how you get these photos, a couple of tips and a couple of traps. First tip is you've got to shoot on a tripod. If you're not using a tripod, there's no way you're going to hold it steady enough because you're going to slow the shutter speeds down. Has to be on a tripod. My second tip, and my tip I always use when I'm on a tripod, is use a remote shutter release. That way you're not touching the camera, you're not going to bump it, it's not going to blur. You can sort of set up a composition, stand back and hit the button, and away you go. That's a good couple of tips there for you. A couple of traps. One of the traps with a waterfall, just by the very nature of all this water rushing down. And I don't know if you've ever been near a big waterfall, but any waterfall, but a big one you would know. You only got to look at photos of like the Niagara Falls. They create a lot of wind, and that's because the water displaces the air around it, and it creates a breeze, a very turbulent air. And that turbulent air starts to move all the foliage around the waterfall. And so you're probably thinking, but Ben, what does that matter? Well, if you're going to have a longer shutter speed, that foliage is going to become blurry because your shutter's open for longer. The foliage is moving around a fair bit. So that's one trap that you've got to watch out for, and I'm going to tell you about how to get around to that in a second. The second trap is, you'll see it's quite bright, especially in the middle there, that main part of the waterfall. And the risk is that you could overexpose them quite easily, and that's a mistake a lot of photographers make when shooting waterfalls, is they don't expose for those areas. They just let their camera take care of the exposure. You have got to check your histogram, check your highlights, and make sure nothing is blown out. Typically I will check my histogram, and waterfalls, it'll always be bunched over to the left. You don't want anything against the right hand side, because if they blow out these highlights, you won't be able to save it. So always underexpose, and then you can bring the shadows back up in post-production. So there's the two traps. One is blowing out your highlights, and the second one is not keeping an eye on the foliage because it can get blurry. Alright, so I'll show you a couple of other examples just so you get an idea for it. So this one here was 0.8 of a second, f22, 24mm with my 14-24mm lens, 24mm lens rather, ISO 100. Which way will I go? I'll go this way. So this is another little sort of cascade near that waterfall on the way down to it, and I wanted to get the ring here with the foam and the pool, like the little whirlpool. more than I wanted to get the silky waterfall effect, but same thing. You'll have a look on the right here, ISO 100, 14mm, so it's my 14 to 24mm lens, f22, 1 second. So it sort of gives you an idea that 1 second for that particular photo was long enough. Which one will I go to next? This one here. This is also Liffey Falls. Same thing. This one I'm actually standing in the water getting very cold feet. But you can see it's shot at ISO 100, 14mm, f22, 0.5 of a second. Now if you haven't got a really good quality lens at f22, you might find that it's not as sharp as you'd like. And so the trick then is you're going to need to use a filter of some sort. So I'm going to show you a couple where I've used filters. Now this one here is of a place called Horseshoe Falls, which is also in Tasmania. And this one here, you'll see it's shot at 2.1 seconds, f14, at 18mm. Now I've shot this with my 16 to 35mm lens. I've switched lenses. Now the reason for that is because I have an ND filter, but it's screw-on, and the 14 to 24mm does not take a screw-on lens. So that's where the 16 to 35 does. You can see I've shot this one at ISO 200 and f14. So this one's in full manual, and I've made those adjustments. Once again, got to be careful not to blow out the highlights. If you look at the right-hand side, or the right-hand full waterfall of the Horseshoe Falls here, you can see it's quite bright in the bottom. Not quite blown out, but very close to it. So same thing, underexpose and then bump up the shadows later on in post-production. But ISO 200, 18mm, f14, 2.1 seconds. The filter that I've used here is called a Hoya ND 400. It's an 8-stop filter. I know that sounds well, it is jargony. In the basic fundamentals of it is it's like sunglasses for your camera lens. And the ND 400 is such a dark filter that you screw on the top, on the front of your lens. It's like it's the same size as your lens, screws on, and it looks black. And for some cameras, it's very difficult to use. So you have to compose and focus before putting it on. With my D800, I'm lucky enough that the live view, if I open the aperture right up, so a small f number, I can see enough to be able to focus and compose my shot. But you may have to focus and compose and then put the filter on, and then you'll get this sort of a result. Now the last one I'm going to show you is one that I shot at at Liffey Falls again. But this one here, I've used the 16 to 35mm lens. You can see it's ISO 100, 17mm, f8. 20 seconds. So, once again, you can do lots of different things. 20 seconds. The reason I've used 20 seconds is because I also wanted this foreground water to be really, soft and luscious, as well as the waterfall. Now, what I did do in this photo, I'll make a confession. I cheated. I took another photo that was at I think 2/50th of a second or something like that, nice and fast. To get all the foliage nice and crisp and clear, because it was very blurry in the 20-second shot. So here I've blended the two photos together to give me this final photo, and that's a little trick for you there. So hopefully that's helped you. I'm sure it has. Go out and try shoot some waterfalls. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'd love for you to stick around, and I promise I'll bring you some more good videos. Cheers.